Hey guys, it's Mace. I'm back at the coffee shop here in Old San Juan, and I just wanted to get back with you guys for another quick under 10 minute podcast. I do feel like there's a huge potential here for, me as the conspiracy theorist. I don't believe anything in the mainstream press ever, never have. Not well, I wouldn't say never, but for the last 7 years, they've lost all trust in me. They'll never get it back. But the thing is, they've made a huge mistake here. Okay, first of all, coming in with the COVID pandemic, and then back to back running the election stuff. So I know that the guys that are on the Democratic side of this thing, they're not gonna. This won't be eye opening for them at all. So, but for those that are voted for Trump, it's interesting. Last week we were having dinner with a guy from Florida. He lives here in San Juan a lot. He's back and forth. But I told him that I felt like 90 to 95% of all Republican voters had seen election fraud, and they were awake to it, and they didn't believe that the results of the election were authentic. And this guy literally got his phone out and Googled it. And he holds up an article from The Independent and says, no, no, see, you're wrong, Mace. Here, look, it's 3%. I just, there are people out there that absolutely agree 100% with everything that's on Wikipedia. And those people exist. And you just, there's no way to get through to them. But for those of you that voted for Trump, and I would imagine that's probably, well, with the 400 subs I've got, I imagine those that voted, probably the majority, and then certainly within my circle of friends, I know that's majority Republican. But anyway, I do believe that people are waking up, because if you voted for Trump and you've been exposed and looked into the election fraud, and believe me, I don't think any of the Democrats have seen any of the evidence that the Republicans have seen. I don't think they'll look into it, and of course they have the mainstream press telling them, go back to sleep, you don't need to see anything, there's nothing to see here. These conspiracy theorists on that side are just deluded. So having said that, I feel like my mortal enemy, which I consider to be the mainstream press, hate them, just absolutely despise them with every fiber of my being. They have absolutely screwed up. They have woken so many millions of people that have been labeled conspiracy theorists now. So I have a feeling that the conspiracy theories that those people refused to look into prior to this, they're going to be a lot more open-minded to those things. And if people start waking up to some truth, I mean real truth, and I'm going way beyond election fraud and a pandemic, oh my God, I don't know what'll happen. It will be interesting. But I'm gonna hit the pause button, and I'm gonna show you guys just a little bit of what I've video clipped this morning of the mainstream press calling the right wing, the conservatives, the Republicans, the Trump backers, conspiracy theorists. So I'll be right back.
Converged on the nation's capital, getting a thumbs up from President Donald Trump, who drove by in his motorcade. Despite an absence of evidence, they say President-elect Joe Biden. Despite an absence of evidence, they say President-elect Joe. Despite an absence of evidence,
voter fraud is a lot like Al Capone's vault. Lots of hype, but not much, actually in there.
As for US President Donald Trump's re-election campaign have made a series of unsubstantiated claims of voter fraud.
US Attorney General Bill Barr has taken the unusual step of authorizing federal prosecutors to investigate possible irregularities in the presidential election. His move follows days of attacks on the election process from Donald Trump, so far without any credible evidence.
It seems like the only thing people are talking about today is the election. And some of that talk is over whether we can trust that all the votes are being counted. President Trump tweeted this last night, saying he'd easily win with legal votes cast and claiming observers were not allowed to do their job. That tweet was flagged for being misleading. We are here now to debunk some of that.
Along with the physical security of the machines, make security experts confident the technology was not hacked this year.
I have confidence because I know the reality of how elections are run. After the election, there's a rigorous process of canvassing every single vote.
Now let's stay on voter fraud allegations. Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, and the rest of the Trump campaign's legal team hosted a press conference, once again alleging the existence of a large-scale voter fraud operation. NBCNews.com political reporter Jane Tim is here to walk us through the whole thing. Now, Jane, I think it's fair to say it was sort of all over the place to an extent. We heard some things we hadn't heard from them before yet. In your opinion, what was the most glaring allegation that stood out during the conference?
Yeah, the biggest one was this idea that it's a massive national urban conspiracy that cost the president the election.
We're seeing here is no widespread fraud. We're not saying there might not have been, a couple errors with ballots. That's normal. Millions of people are casting ballots. Widespread fraud, no evidence.
So you can see what the mainstream press is doing. It's just repeated the phrase, no evidence, no evidence, no evidence, and then conspiracy theory. So they throw that in there also, and that certainly causes people to never look into anything that they might have otherwise looked into. But the good news is, for me anyway, I woke up to 9/11 about 7 years ago. I had some questions about it from very early on. I invited a bunch of my friends over. We grilled up some steaks. We watched Loose Change on YouTube, which was pretty new back then. YouTube for us was new back in that area. And, I remember playing that video for my friends and like, oh, no, there's no way George Bush would lie to us, Mace. So anyway, I feel like this is a wonderful opportunity to show you guys exactly how the Mockingbird Press, in this case Fox News and Bill O'Reilly, did exactly the same moves that you just saw with the election.
Joining us now from Madison is James Fetzer, a recent retired professor from the University of Minnesota Duluth who supports Barrett. I'm getting a little tired of Barrett and Ward Churchill and other college professors who hate their country and who bring this hatred onto a campus full of impressionable students. Am I wrong to be offended and angry about that, sir?
Well, you are wrong, Bill, because you haven't studied the case. We've created an organization consisting of experts and scholars, pilots, aeronautical engineers, mechanical engineers, structural engineers, civil engineers, physicists. We've been examining what the government's been telling us, and frankly, Bill, it's a fantasy. None of the major claims made by the government can be sustained. We've been looking at this from every point of view. The government has a story. It wants to sell us. We're not buying it.
Okay, you don't have to buy anything. You're American. You want to be a nut, you can be a nut. And you are a nut. Because in order for any conspiracy of this magnitude to take place, thousands of Americans would have to buy into it, would have to know about it, and would have to keep their mouth shut about it. That's never going to happen. You're like the guys who think that the space aliens kidnapped Elvis or something like that. That's where you are, in my opinion. So your opinion is that Bush murdered everybody on 9/11 to seize control and make him the dictator of America, whatever the crazy thing it is. And my opinion is you're nuts. We're both entitled to our opinion, okay? So you're entitled and I'm entitled. And we'll let the folks decide. Well, hold it. But now you have a guy, Barrett, who's in a classroom, and we had the students on last night, and believe me, the students don't know very much, and here's Barrett, and here's Ward Churchill, and they're bringing their crazy theories in, explaining this, that, and the other thing, and whatever conclusions you guys have reached. And the students are there absorbing this. And I'm saying this is grossly irresponsible because it's based on nothing. If you had any evidence, sir, you would be on the front page of the New York Times in a heartbeat. There's nothing that the hate Bush media would like more than get a hold of anything you have. And you don't have anything. You can't get into San Francisco Chronicle or the National Enquirer or anywhere because you don't have anything other than a harebrained theory. And you know it.
Wow. So you guys just saw that. And, I've tried to wake up a lot of people to 9/11 in the past. And I've heard that regurgitated by so many people that heard the O'Reilly just beat down on Jim Fetzer there, where we wouldn't let Jim talk. And, I've heard that as an excuse in terms of why, 9/11 could not have been an inside job because the Bush hate media would have came after him. And now that half the country has woken up to the reality that the press is completely controlled. I think a lot of Republicans are about to wake up to 9/11 reality. So I do think that they've really made a big mistake labeling half the country a conspiracy theorist, tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. So I would like to just explain one more thing. You know, when Trump's lawyer came on TV this week, and I think it was Giuliani, they basically chirated the mainstream press that was in the White House press room that morning, and just told them that all you guys do is lie and you won't report this. And sure enough, that, by the way, that Fox News clip is one of the only times that any questioning of 9/11 has ever made it on the mainstream news ever in 20 years. It pretty much has never gone on the mainstream nightly news ever. So it made it on the O'Reilly Factor, and I can tell you right now, Bill O'Reilly is a Mockingbird operative, no question about it at all. Do not trust him. I've told you guys I don't trust Fox News, and now they've lost all your support too. So I'm hoping that at least half the country is going to wake up and start to see what's going on here. But anyway, when Giuliani and Trump's attorney went on the press room that day, they said this should be headline news in every paper across the country tomorrow. And of course, it wasn't. They buried that story. It wasn't anywhere. That story was reported in 0 places. I go to CNBC to get price quotes during the day, and it never made it. It wasn't even on their radar screen. Completely buried it, which is exactly what they've done with 9/11. So I'm hoping that you guys will start to get a little bit suspicious and look into some of these conspiracy theories that you've refused to look into up until now. Thanks for your time.